Good evening, and we will be changing up the order here considerably on the agenda, but before we start with our comprehensive plan amendment public hearing, we are going to read, I'll read two absences into the record. First, please be advised that due to a family medical emergency, I will not be able to attend the public hearings tonight. Please read the reason for my absence into the record. That's Commissioner Les Miller. The second is from Commissioner Stacy White. I will be unable to attend tonight's public hearing due to unforeseen family medical circumstances. Please read my reason for my absence into the record. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Comprehensive Plan Amendment Public Hearing. And I'll now request that Tony Garcia of the Planning Commission staff take us through tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. We have several changes to tonight's agenda. The first one on your list is item A1, which is the capital improvements element, the CIE schedule of projects update. This is the public hearing for adoption of the capital improvements element, schedule of projects update for fiscal year 2020 through 2024. Staff is requesting a continuance. The Planning Commission request actually is the FY 20 through 25 capital improvements element schedule. We ask that it be continued to a date certain of December 19th, 29 at your 6 p.m. evening hearing. This continuance is being requested as CIE Policy 3D adopts the MPO's TIP, HARTS, and Tampa Downtown Partnership and the Hillsborough County Public School Facilities Work Program by reference into the schedule of projects. The school board has not yet adopted this year's work program. Staff is requesting this continuance in order to ensure the CIE schedule reflects the school board work program update that is scheduled to be adopted in November. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So it sounds like we might have some discussion. Do we have a motion to support this continuance? We have a motion, and do we have? Well, we could, but maybe we could start with a motion and then a motion and do we have a second? Okay, go ahead.
So it might be a good idea to do a roll call to see how many.
Commissioner, your microphone.
Yep, your mic.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Might be a good idea to do a roll call to see what commissioners will be available on December 19th.
So
given it's holiday season, and oftentimes that's the Thursday before the Christmas week. So I'd hate for citizens and everybody else to show up for a meeting that we didn't have a quorum.
Can I ask before we even do that, December 19th, is that a must for that date, or could it be moved into January, or could it be made a little earlier? Are there options? And what are they?
Is November available?
Commissioners, I don't believe that there are public hearings scheduled between now and December 19th, and the schedule for 2020 has not yet been established yet, so there's not an alternate date earlier than that time, and the later dates have not yet been established. If by December 19th, there would be public hearings established in 2020, so it is an option to continue from that hearing if it's the board's pleasure.
Could we schedule it for the first meeting of the new year without a specific date? I'm sorry, Commissioner Merman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so we have a county commission board meeting the day before. So obviously we're here. And it looks, my schedule's full that whole day with EPC is that day unless you cancel it. So I'm saying either if we have to reschedule it, do it when we have our land use meeting in December to see if we could possibly do it then, but I think right now it looks like probably just have to keep it the way it is.
Commissioner Hagan?
I just had a question. Are there any other applications that scheduled for that day?
At this point, there are not other applications. There's a land development code amendment that will need a second public hearing. It could either be on that 19th or during a daytime land use meeting if the board so inclined.
Yeah, I mean, if there are other applications, and clearly I think we should keep it, but if this is going to be the only one or one other one, then let's do our best to try and make it during a land use meeting. But
If I may add to that, Commissioner Hagan, to answer your question a little bit more regarding this is a set public hearing date that evening for December 19th for plan amendments. We do have, we will have several other requests this evening to continue to that December 19th date. And we also have a transmittal hearing that you will be hearing this evening, that the adoption hearing for that would be scheduled for December 19th also.
Oh, okay. Okay, it sounds like, so we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Overman. Hearing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
The next item up for your consideration is item C1. This is HCCPA 1817, future land use map change. The proposed change is on 2.03 acres, and the request is to go from residential 6 to residential 20. The applicant is requesting a continuance and did email all of you, have received notice requesting a continuance also to the same December 19th evening hearing at 6 p.m.
Okay, do we have a motion to continue by Commissioner Overman, seconded by Commissioner Merman? Is there any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Okay, next item is item C2, which is HCCPA.
One moment, sir.
Sorry.
I got to read. Motion carried 5-0.
Sorry, thank you. The next item is HCCPA 1818, which is a future land use map change. The proposed change is on 21.32 acres. The request is from suburban mixed use 6 to residential 16. The continuation is required because of a misnotice. It was a staff error as far as an placement of a legal ad. So this would also have to be continued. Now, there is a request by the applicant, who I believe is here to request an alternate date other than the date that we have already proposed on the prior 2 items.
And I see that there are 2 related items, so do we vote on each of them separately?
Commissioner, you can vote on both of them together. They're related items and need to travel together.
Okay. And the applicant is requesting a November 12th land use meeting rather than the nighttime meeting. So do we have a motion with regards to that? So moved. Okay, we have a...
And Commissioner Mann, Jack, very briefly, just this was at least partially noticed, so it might be useful to see if anyone has come in tonight to be able to speak to this. The applicant's representative said they don't have any objection to anyone speaking who's here. What happened was there was a newspaper notice missed, but there was posting, so in case anyone's here, it might be worthwhile at this time to let them speak into the record.
Okay, we will then entertain a public hearing and allow those here to speak in the record on this item. This is CPA 1818. Is there anyone here that had come to address this item tonight? Okay. Were you? Okay, seeing no one here and no further discussion from what I can see, we have a motion by Commissioner Merman and seconded by Commissioner Overman. And seeing no further discussion, please record your vote to continue both to November 12th.
At 9 a.m.
At the land use meeting at 9 a.m.
Motion carried 5-0.
Mr. Garcia?
Thank you, ma'am. The next item before you is item C3. This is HCCPA 1906. This is also a future land use map change. The proposed change is on 3.4 acres, and the request is from residential 1 to suburban mixed use 6. The applicant is requesting a continuance, I believe also to the December 19th evening hearing.
Okay, to the December. So we have at least 2 items, Commissioner Hagan. Do we have a motion to continue? We have a motion by Commissioner Smith. Do we have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Merman. Commissioner Merman, you're recognized.
Thank you. I was wondering on this particular item if this should not come back together with the zoning item. And I'd like to ask Adam, I think this item in particular probably begs of that, and no, Commissioner White's not here, so I'm kind of standing in for him on this issue. But I asked staff to comment.
It's Commissioner, item, Plan Amendment 19-06 is seeking to cure a code enforcement citation on the property. The plan amendment would be the first step to that. To ultimately cure the whole issue, it would require a rezoning of the property. And if it was the board's wish to have them travel together, that could provide some certainty as to the uses on the property versus the plan amendment being acted on alone and then a subsequent rezoning. So if it was the board's pleasure, that would be an appropriate means to take up the whole issue at once.
Ma'am, if I could just say, if the applicant is here, maybe I want to hear from them before we definitely vote on this, one way or the other. I think it would be fair.
Is the applicant present? Representative of the applicant?
Commissioners, I am Bob Hunter. Pamela Jo Hatley and I are representing the applicant on this case. And yes, I think we could work that depending upon the time frame as it deals with the zoning application and notices. If it's December 19th, that gives us 2 months to process it. I think most of you are familiar with SMU 6. We have to accompany that with the proper zoning for it. But yes, I think we could work it if we get the dates to work right.
And in that case, it would get to the board later than December 19th. It would take longer than that to work through the zoning process. So an option by the
We could ask for a continuance then to the date
continuance on the
the zoning would
19th
be
to
heard.
some future
Okay.
date, and
Thank
we
you.
may have a better idea of when the two would be able to land back with the board together.
Yeah, we'd be here.
Okay, so I'll move to continue HC CPA 19-06 to November 19th, but to also have the zoning application travel with the amendment.
And it was
Proposed
December
change.
19th.
December 19th.
On December
Right.
19th.
And do we have, and so both parts of it, to have the zoning application paired with it, and
Which you will probably get
and
continued on the 19th.
do we have, okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Merman, a second by Commissioner Overman. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I am generally philosophically opposed to having the zoning travel with the comprehensive plan amendment and have that influence our decision on the comprehensive plan. To me, the comprehensive plan is, and forgive me for telling you what the comprehensive plan is about, but it is about, it's like our Constitution, and the zoning is the laws that go on top of that. And I have seen many times, or several times, where somebody gets a comp plan amendment or a zoning, and their plan that they show us is for one thing, and then soon after that, through no fault of their own, because of conditions change, because the market changes, they end up doing something different. And so, you do the comp plan amendment, and that says certain things can be done on this property. Somebody comes in with a zoning, that's fine for now, but then they might, it's specifically here, outside the urban service area, they've got SMU 6. They can do all kinds of things within that SMU 6. So if, in this case, the zoning came through maybe with some specific conditions that made it very restricted to what they could do.
That's kind of why I did this, because of conditions.
So that it, wouldn't be allowing the more intense industrial or dense residential that you could have on that property. It might not be a bad thing in this case, yeah.
Certainly, Commissioners, this would be a planned development zoning, so it would be very specific zoning to the site with conditions, and as I understand it, there is a specific use that's being sought to be cured, so
Just one use.
Right.
I believe that can get very, very narrowly defined in the planned development zoning that would accompany the plan amendment.
Yeah.
We can accommodate that request. Thank you.
And I just want to say I appreciate your points very much, Commissioner Smith, because I think it's really important. Those distinctions that you made are very important to me also. I appreciate those comments. I won't bother to reiterate. And so seeing no further discussion, we have a motion by Commissioner Merman and seconded by Commissioner Overman, both to make these travel together and for continuance to December 19th at this point. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
The next three items before you this evening, Commissioners, items D1, D2, and D3, which are HCCPA 1903, 1904, and 1905, have been withdrawn by the applicant.
So that I don't know if the audience members are here, but so that means they will not be back again.
That's correct. That's a done deal. I guess that's history. So those are the notice ASA amendments, and they have been withdrawn formally requested by the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
So your final item, your final plan amendment item this evening will be HCCPA 1907, which is a future land use map change, proposed change on approximately 55.9 acres from residential 4 to residential 2. Ms. Unica Mills will make the presentation for you on this particular amendment. Thank you.
Great.
Good evening, Commissioners. Unica Mills, Planning Commission staff. I'm here to present HCCPA 1907, Tavallo Hills neighborhood. This is a privately initiated plan amendment that's being brought forth by a group of homeowners. The site is located within the urban service area and within the garden estates of the Brandon Community Plan. There are a total of 49 sites totaling approximately 55 acres. And the request before you this evening is to change a future land use designation from residential 4 to residential 2, which would be a down plan. The site is located within the southeastern portion of Hillsborough County. The area is predominantly residential with a mixture of lot sizes from less than a quarter of an acre to over 4 acres. Centrally located is Chimino Elementary School here, and there are commercial uses once you get back northeast along Lithia Pinecrest Road here. Here is a more zoomed out aerial of the area. It gives some proximity as to how far the urban service area boundary line is to the east. These photos are the typical lot size within the Tavallo Hills neighborhood. The photo here on the left is approximately 1 acre. And the photo here on the right is the largest parcel within the plan amendment request, which is 4 acres. The immediate area has some unique characteristics that may give you all some further context as to why the applicant is seeking this future land use designation change. The Tavallo Hills neighborhood was platted in the 70s. The eastern portion of the subdivision is located within the residential 4 future land use, western portion is located within the residential 4 classification, and the eastern portion is located within the residential 2 future land use classification. And after researching this matter, it was discovered that the split land use follows a section township range line. The subdivision has been in this state since the inception of the comprehensive plan. Due to the site being platted in the 70s, the site is not served by water and sewer. The homes are on private well and septic. The current zoning designation for the proposed site is agricultural single family 1, which would be below minimum density. So if the parcels were to come in to subdivide, it would not create a nonconformity. Currently, the sites are designated as a residential 4 future land use classification. And again, the request before you this evening is to change your future land use designation to residential 2. Other future land use designations in the area include natural preservation, which is south of the site. Again, we have the residential 2, which is closer to the rural area here. We have residential plan 2 south of the site, and again, we have the residential 4 along the western boundary of the site. Again, you can see that distinct split between the residential 4 and the residential 2. Again, that follows a section township range line. And the residential 2 that you see here, it provides more of a transition to the rural area. The proposed future land use designation change is consistent with the following goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. Though the site is located within the urban service area, which states that parcels should be at least at a density of 4 units or greater, Policy 1.2 of the future land use element contemplates lower density where the existing development pattern does not support those densities. Policy 2.1 of the future land use element speaks to the timeliness of growth in the urban service area and states that a project is premature if there's a lack of services such as transportation to support the development. And from the agency comments that you have in your backup packet, transportation staff stated that currently Lithia Pinecrest, which is the main entry point into Tavallo Hills neighborhood, is operating at a level of service D. Policy 16.8 states that density should reflect the overall character of the area. The residential 2 future land use classification is considered a suburban land use classification, and there's language within the community design component of the future land use element which describes suburban development as being a transition between the urban and rural area, and that suburban development can be very similar to either rural or suburban development. And last but not least, the site is located within the Brandon Community Plan. The amendment is specifically located within the Garden Estates District of the Brandon Community Plan. And Goal 3 of the Brandon Community Plan states that historic patterns of development of established neighborhoods should be protected. Currently, the site could develop up to a potential of 223 units. If the site were to be approved, the dwelling units would decrease down to 111 units. This amendment would essentially, again, be a down plan. Neither the residential 4 or the residential 2 would permit non-residential uses, being that the site does not meet locational criteria. There were no reviewing agencies that raised any concerns from the proposed future land use designation change. And at the Planning Commission's October 14th public hearing, they recommended that CPA 1907 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the future of Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for that presentation. I don't see any questions at this time. Before we go to public hearing, is this the time appropriate, Mr. Clark, for us to inform the applicant about 5 commissioners being present?
Sure. Per board policies, when there's more than or 2 or more commissioners absent, the applicant has a right to continue. So yes, just in case the applicant is listening, if the applicant wishes, board policy allows a continuance.
Okay, we'll open it for a public hearing. Each person, including the applicant, is allowed 3 minutes per speaker, and the applicant rebuttal, if applicable, is allowed up to 3 minutes. So we'll open. Please, is there any members of the public that want to speak to this agenda item?
Yes.
You can come to the mic and state your name.
Sorry, I thought we were supposed to sign in. So my name is Margaret Jamsky. I reside at 4406 Loma Vista Drive in Valrico. I am representing the Taval Hills Neighborhood Alliance. Some of our members are here. A little shout out. And I understand we have 3 minutes, but we were told that they could cede their 3 minutes to me because we have like a 10-minute presentation.
That's fine. That's,
Okay.
I guess I could have, do I need to have 3 people stand up and see their minutes, or?
It's at the chair's discretion.
Okay, I'm gonna believe you.
Okay, appreciate that. Oh, IT man. I had to bring my own IT man the last time too. Is that how? Yeah. Oh, I emailed the PowerPoint. For 1907. There it is right there. Yeah. That's, well, it's 1907. Okay, we brought a backup just in case. Yay. This will happen to me because it's a computer, so we're prepared.
You're not the only one,
I've been in tears over this, but thanks to our. Yes, that's it. Oh, that's it. Mhm. Okay, thank you very much, appreciate that. Sorry. Oh, okay. Okay, all right, that's always gonna throw me off right there. Anyway, thanks to Ms. Mills, she did a great job. I feel like I don't even need to add anything, but I kind of want to do like a little personal touch because we feel like this is very personal to us, okay? And we know every one of you are familiar with the Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan. We do not want to in any way take away from that. We just kind of feel like there's maybe a little oversight that happened probably long before y'all were even involved in this plan. So we're hoping that when we show those things too, that you would be in agreement with our request. So why did we decide to do this? If you'll look up in the right-hand corner where it says Shetland Ridge, that piece of property is 26-acre tract that was up for sale several years ago. And we have, many of us, grown up in that neighborhood. We knew Miss Smith, and so we heard she was selling it. We asked her who was going to purchase and what would happen to it. And she told us then that they're going to be broken up to half-acre parcels and a neighborhood. We're like, okay, we're happy with that, because as you can see, around the north and west and southwest corner of us, we're kind of enveloped with a bunch of clustering homes. So we were very happy to hear that. However, once the ground was broken, we noticed there were clustering homes. So that made us question how that could even happen, because we didn't really understand the whole process they were going through. So that's how we learned about FLU and USA and other terms like established neighborhoods, rural neighborhoods, forgotten neighborhoods. We did a lot of research. So we contacted the county, who have been really helpful, the zoning and development, especially the planning people, helping us kind of weed through the land development code and understand exactly what was happening. The majority of us moved out there when there were no amenities. So we were perfectly content being out there in that chosen lifestyle. And basically, there's no clear answer except that, like Ms. Unica said, the lines were drawn, and it just happened to split our neighborhood in half. So as you can see, she showed you this map on the left. Our neighborhood's outlined in red, and the bright yellow is R2, and the lesser color is R4. And you can see, comparing to the one on the right, how we're just kind of stuck right in the middle of all that growth. So that's when we decided to file this plan in hopes that you guys would help us maintain the character of our neighborhood amidst all the development around it. So that's what took us to the time frame of all these neighborhoods around us that were developed. And you can see We were 1971, the one to our north, 1988, another 1990, 92, and 2015. So this is, I brought my big map here. I guess since you guys can see this, I don't really have to have him, but he wants to do this, so we're good. He's my helper. You can see how the land to the north of us, which in our minds, 1988, the plan was established, and so we would have hoped that that transition would have happened there. Now that we understand why it didn't, because we kind of got engrossed in that Bloomingdale area, we understood that. But the future land use of unincorporated Hillsborough County says that the comprehensive plan is a guide to future growth and development. And that was established in 1988, 17 years after we were already moved and living in our property. And one of the features of that was to give us a choice of living in an urban, suburban, or rural area. Also, the USA boundaries that were not established when we were first there, that came out in 1992, 22 years later, also gave the residents freedom to choose a variety of settings of urban, suburban, or rural. And we obviously had already chosen our lifestyle, so thank you. So here's why we want to be a homogeneous neighborhood and fall under that R2 designator and FLU throughout. The parcels of land you see outlined in red have the potential to be sold to developers. And because of that, we're asking that you help us maintain the character of our neighborhood and reestablish the transition that we feel should have happened. We've already accommodated, can you bring that one? I'm sorry, I forgot this one part. We also have accommodated the influx of traffic into this school right here. You can see it better than the big. This is Chimino Elementary. Oh, sorry. This is Chimino Elementary right here, okay? The people from this area here in Bloomingdale, you can see on this map that you guys have on your monitors, drive around the neighborhood and come back in off of Lithia Pinecrest, come down to Vallow, to Hideaway Lane, and come into a maintenance entrance to drop their children off and pick them up again. Now, that's been going on since 2002. So our thing is, if these areas are developed as R4, like they could very well be, all these parents are going to do the same thing, drive all the way around to come into our neighborhood. It's already created quite a safety problem for us as it is. Many of our residents no longer horseback ride. You can't really stroll down the street anymore. It's just been an ongoing problem. We're not even allowed to go to that school. And our kids aren't even zoned to go to that school, which really kind of threw us for a loop, so thank you. So that was one dilemma we had, and since we've been searching this out, we've had several people suggest that we approach the school board about that, which we probably will when we're done with this part. So anyway, according to the Brandon Community Plan, the attempt to buffer and transition uses in a concentric circles where possible, we didn't feel was carried out in our situation. We tried to do circles coming out of the Brandon Plan. It just wasn't happening. So when we looked up Garden Estates, which was the same map that Ms. Mills put up there, it very clearly calls for parcels of at least a ½ acre in size. Now, Ms. Mills did mention there are some quarter-acre lots in our neighborhood. The reason they're there is as development kept coming towards us, the plats were off just a little bit, and a couple inches here and there across all of Bloomingdale ended up being quarter of an acre to our side. So those pieces of property are owned by the county, and they're just sitting there vacant. So I don't really kind of consider them part of our problem because there's nothing on them. But that's what makes up part of our property. And as you can see, Chimino Elementary, down in the far right corner, that is part of the Garden Estates. I still don't understand how the whole Bloomingdale region was able to occupy that much of the Green Estates. So that's probably another question we'll want to answer one day, but let's get through this one first. And also, according to the Hillsborough Comp Plan, we are a rural residential neighborhood. We're an established neighborhood. We're an existing development, and we're zoned AS1 agricultural. So we found some pictures, just a couple of them quickly over the decades. You see 1966, a dairy farm out there to the west. There's orange groves. And by 1973, all of our area had been platted out, and people were already moved in there. Less than 10 years later, still, big dairy farm, orange groves. That upper left-hand corner, I believe, is the beginning of a golf course for Bloomingdale. And then 1991, between 1991 and 1997, it just blew up. So it just kept coming and coming. And then finally, this last picture of 2017, you can see that we are completely just encroached with all the development around us. And we understand that that's just the way it's happened, but we're just trying to preserve some of what we have left. We live right, here, I have one personal grievance, and then if someone else wants to speak. We live right here. Let me pull that up. As you can see, it's right in the corner of Chimino Elementary, okay, right here. And we moved out there with the idea of raising our children with horses, cows, chickens, the whole thing. We have our horse stalls back in that corner. And when that school moved in 2002, our horses had a terrible time. The playground was right there. I love children. I understand they were having a good time, but our horses just could no longer take it. So on the advice of our vet, he said we should move them somewhere else. And for us, it just wasn't feasible because that's why we bought out there. So to board our horses somewhere else, we had neighbors offer, but I couldn't put that on them for the life of the horses. So we just got rid of them. So just for me personally, it's affected our life already. And we have several other members here that feel the same way, but same situation. So thank you for listening to our side of the story. I hope that we brought it a little more personal to y'all because it's very personal to us. And we thank you for your acceptance on our request.
Thank you for your very interesting and good presentation. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak at this time?
Just amen to what she says.
We heard you.
I got a very support group.
They are a minimum of 1 acre.
Please identify yourself and.
I'm Beverly Weaver. I just wanted to say that all the people living in the neighborhood, they're a minimum of 1 acre lots, even though they said quarter acre and half, and the people that are living there have 1 acre or more.
Yeah, we all have 1 acre lots, so definitely.
Okay. So we have no further public comment. Would you like to comment?
Karen Mahalski, 7903 West Whitewater Court. I'm a local activist, volunteer, member of the Sierra Club, and this is a unique situation where we want to reduce density in the urban service area. And it's because of the failure, if you want to think of it that way, or an oversight of what has happened to this community over time. Because they just thought that the planning and the government was going to protect them. But because as things happen, and as you visually can see with the development, it didn't. And for someone's quality of life or their property rights. So property rights are always wanting to be protected. And so this community had to get together to defend their property rights because they felt like they had to get an exemption to protect them because their property rights were being overlooked. And there isn't transportation out there. There isn't, they're on septic. They've sacrificed so much and they've been almost taken advantage of, and they've been quiet. They haven't come and complained to any of these other developments. They've been quiet and they've just kind of, hey, this is how it's going, and they've accepted it. But now they want to really protect it, and it really is defensible as Ms. Mills stated in the comprehensive plan. So these people should be able to go back to what their property rights were. Previous comprehensive plans were on here because somebody didn't receive notification because they lived in Michigan. This is something similar. They didn't receive proper notification or advisement to protest or to defend their rights. So for that, I agree with them, and that we should allow for this density change to protect a unique suburban rural designation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any further comments? Seeing no further comments, we have a motion by Commissioner Merman with a second by Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
I just have a couple of quick observations. This is an excellent example of how to address what happened, and recognize that there's times where we're looking at a current situation that doesn't seem to fit for what we thought was going to happen. So I'm glad to see the citizens were wise enough to come in and say, we want to phase to more rural as we get closer to the urban service area line, where it makes more sense, especially since we haven't necessarily brought the resources and the infrastructure to the community as they may have anticipated in the past. So I obviously will support this request. I think it's a wise one. I'm glad to see that the community stood together and actually brought it to our attention. And it does seem to be consistent with what is happening in that particular area and what makes sense for the people that live in that particular community. Did I hear that the square to your northeast is county property, that block there?
Yes.
It is. And it's just open green land?
It's a retention pond.
It's a retention pond. Okay, great. I'm just, always looking for land. So just be careful telling me these things. But
Excuse me, you need to go to the microphone.
From what we understand, it was supposed to be a county park for Bloomingdale East, the neighborhood to our northeast, northwest, but they just didn't develop it. And so from what we understand, the county picked it up for non-payment of taxes and then put a retention pond there. There's a little bit of acreage, but not very much. It's mostly just retention pond.
But primarily watershed resource. Okay, great. Thank you very much. That's the only thing I had to say.
Thank you. I'd just like to add, thank you all for all your work. It's, I think, amazing and shows a love of your community that you did all this to recognize. I think it's really hard for citizens to sift through everything they need to do to figure out this. I've been on the board for 3 years, and I think this may be, I can't recall another downzoning. And so I think it's really just shows so much initiative, and I'm just so impressed and taken by what you're doing. It looks like, I'm not sure, but it looks like there should be a path, maybe non-motorized, from those neighborhoods to Chimena School. It looks like an opportunity, and that should be maybe something as you move forward. I would suggest, and I'll talk to staff about looking at that, because these are the crazy stories that we hear about when everybody has to take their cars through, when perhaps students could just ride their bikes or walk right through that little path. Seems to make a lot more sense. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. And I echo your appreciation and admiration for these citizens and all their work. I know what that takes. You know what that takes, a lot. I just wanted to quickly mention there have been other down plannings. Just so you know, Viv Baca organized a neighborhood down planning around John Moore area in the comp plan, and we down planned a piece of the Riverview community plan in that process. So it's possible. It takes a village, but it's possible.
So great. Seeing no further comments, we will please record your votes.
Motion carried 5-0.
So this is a motion for transmittal, so you'll
Exactly.
have an adoption hearing December 19th that evening.
Okay. So a hearing on, a second hearing on
That's
December.
correct. It'll have to be, this is a transmittal hearing, so this will go for state and regional review. It will come back for an adoption hearing on December 19th.
Okay, thank you.
And Madam Chair, just to keep the record clean, that was voting up that item. May I ask for a separate vote just to adopt the resolution so I can transmit this to the state affected agencies? Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion for adoption by Commissioner Merman, seconded by Commissioner Overman. Did I get that? Okay. Seeing no further comments, please, to transmit to the state.
I'm sorry, yes, it's a resolution.
Right. A resolution, I'm sorry. I see this. Resolution to transmit to the state. Seeing no further comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to adjourn this part of the hearing. and move into the Land Development Code amendments. If you all have no further business, you're free to stay with us. I'll give you a few minutes to clear out. Thank you all.
You ready, Israel? Israel's breaking. How about those Nationals? Good for you guys, man. What's shocking is they did it against
So we'd have to
Cole and
vote on that
Verlander.
this time.
Who does that against Cole and Verlander? Good for them.
Yeah, we. Okay, we'll move now to the Land Development Code Amendment public hearing. Commissioner Miller will be fast. He'd be sorry he missed this. And I'll first, for the record, read the absences in once again. From Commissioner Miller, please be advised that due to a medical family emergency, I will not be able to attend the public hearing tonight. Please read my reason for the absence into the record. Once again, by Commissioner White, I'm unable to attend tonight's public hearing due to unforeseen family medical circumstances. Please read the reason for my absence into the record. Okay. And we'll now recognize you for telling us about the LDC amendments tonight.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought.
No, that's fine. We're all here for the same thing.
I thought you were not going to be here tonight. So, okay, Mr. Moreta, thank you.
Joe Moreta, Development Services Department, for the record. Israel Monsanto is going to get into a presentation soon, as is also Mike Stevenson is here for an item on the agenda. I just wanted to run by one item on the agenda because it's organized a little differently than we have in the past, and that is item B1, and it's dealing with the microbreweries. If you recall, at the last public hearing, the board received input regarding adding micro wineries as part of the microbreweries amendment, and we've been able to do that, but in doing so, we had to structure it because of the notice where we took it back to the Planning Commission and had a workshop with them. This is before you tonight as the first of 2 public hearings. The second public hearing is scheduled for December 19th, which it sounds like a lot of other items are scheduled that night as well. So this will be the first of 2 public hearings to consider the additional language. We'll take it back to the Planning Commission for a consistency finding in November, and then bring it back to the board for the final adoption hearing in December. And Israel's going to walk you through that item after he takes you through the items that are listed in the A component of the agenda. Now, the A component of the agenda, kind of working backwards, those already have 1 public hearing, so this is the second of 2. So for A1, A2, and A3, those items are up for adoption tonight, and this will be the second of 2 public hearings for those. So those can be disposed of tonight in the fashion the board sees fit. Having said that, Israel is ready to go, and we're ready to move the show.
Thank you.
Good evening, Israel Monsanto Development Services staff. As Mr. Moreta stated, the first section of this presentation will deal with the 3 items that are here for the second time in front of the board. These 3 items are LDC 191043, dealing with phosphate mining regulations, 191054, car wash facilities, and 191218, mobile home parks and recreational vehicle parks. Mr. Mike Stevenson from Public Utilities is here to go through the first LDC text 191043.
Good evening. My name is Mike Stevenson. I'm with the Public Utilities Department. And the purpose of these amendments were to clarify some sections of the Land Development Code that over the years, the things have changed. And Section 80208, the reason for that is to fix some typos and outdated Florida Administrative Code references, clarify the reclamation release process, and the release process should be certified for a contiguous area based on reclamation type, limited to no more than twice a year. Section 80209 applies to the annual reports provided by the mining companies. And the Section A is filing and contents. We're updating the filing requirements for annual reports. Instead of 16 paper copies, just 2 paper copies for files and electronic copy for agency review distribution. And the thing that really needed to be changed was Section 80210, the financial responsibility. Paragraph A, generally, it was to update the financial responsibility from a flat rate of $4,000 per acre of mined and unreclaimed lands to a current year actual cost basis of $6,113 per acre. Hereafter, the financial responsibility will be adjusted annually for the percent change in the construction cost index as published by the Engineering News Record. We had that $4,000 an acre for 30 plus years, and actual costs have gone up to over 6,000. So we found a method to adjust it annually through the construction cost index. And I'm here for any questions.
And do we have any questions? Is there a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so we will open this for a public hearing at this time. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Merman, seconded by Commissioners Overman and Smith. And no request to speak. I have to say that one of my favorite parts of this was the fact that you were reducing from 16 hard copies to 1 electric copy and 2 hard copies for these. So that's good news. Seeing no further comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Thank you.
Israel Monsanto Development Services staff again. The next item is text amendment 19-1054. The purpose of this text amendment is to clarify the car wash use in the commercial neighborhood zoning district. This amendment will allow automated car washes in the commercial neighborhood district, and the definition of car wash will be clarified to specify differences between self-serve, automated, and staffed car washes. As you can see in the staff report, the Land Development Code defines car wash facilities with 3 different types: automated, self-serve, or staffed. And due to this differentiation, only self-serve facilities are permitted in commercial neighborhood districts. A self-serve facility requires the customer to fully operate the car wash without any assistance from staff. And these self-serve facilities typically consist of washing bays with coin-operated dispenser for cleaning product, rinse water, and towels. All other car wash facilities will be considered staffed, involving employees assisting customers with the vehicle washing operations. However, automated car washes facilities that are fully automatic and operated by customers without staff being present is also a serve-self facility. The proposed amendment will more clearly define the different type of car wash facilities and allow automated car washes without operating staff that meet the definition to be permitted in all commercial zoning districts. The next text amendment is revisions to the Land Development Code, Section 611-110.
Yes, I think we need to stop for a public hearing at this point. Are any members of the public here to comment on the car wash facility special and conditional uses? Any public comment? We have a motion for approval by Commissioner Merman, seconded by Commissioner Overman. Seeing no further comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Okay.
The last item of the first section of this presentation is the Land Development Code 19-1218. These are revisions to the Land Development Code Section 611-110, mobile home parks and recreational vehicles parks. The purpose of this land Development Code text amendment is to modify the density provision for recreational vehicles or RV parks. This text amendment will revise Note 1 of Section 611-110C1 to eliminate the density increases for proposed RV parks outside the urban service area or where urban services are unavailable. This text amendment will modify Note 1 to restrict the density increases for RV park, which are outside the urban service area, or again, where the urban services are unavailable. The amended note will specify that in addition to the future land use designations, road classification, and location in relation to an interstate or expressway interchange, the proposed RV park must be inside the urban service area and urban services need to be available.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public here to speak to this amendment on mobile home parks and recreational vehicle parks? We have a motion for approval by Commissioner Merwin, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Seeing no further comments, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
Now, Madam Chair, at this time, since those are the three items that are up for adoption tonight, could I have a separate vote on an ordinance to incorporate those changes in the Land Development Code? It will be effective upon filing with the Department of State.
We have a motion by Commissioner Merman, seconded by Commissioner Overman, to approve these for the Land Development Code. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 5-0.
And we'll move to the final item tonight.
The next item is Land Development Code Text 19-1053, and this is the first of two public hearings, and this is the workshop section, and we will get public input tonight. This text amendment will do revisions to Land Development Code Section 61100 and 120100 for microbreweries and microwineries. The next public hearing for this text amendment will be on Thursday, December 19th, 2019 at 6 p.m. The purpose of this text amendment is to add standards for microbreweries and microwineries and clarify definitions for brew pubs. This amendment will recognize the emergence of local independent microbreweries and microwineries. The state issues these businesses a CMB license for cereal malt beverage or a AMW license for wine, bottled wine. This amendment will incorporate a standard for microbreweries and microwineries to allow retail sale and wholesale distribution of beer in commercial zoning districts to a maximum of 15,000 barrels of beer per year or 100,000 gallons of wine. In commercial neighborhood districts, beer or wine wholesale distribution will not be permitted. Reports of monthly production of beer or wine are publicly available and accessible at the State Department of Business and Professional Regulation website, and county staff will have the ability to access these reports to verify production data for compliance if needed. The proposed amendment will also include standards and restrictions for the outdoor storage of materials in commercial neighborhood and commercial general districts. And definitions for microbreweries and microwineries and brew pubs will also be clarified in the Land Development Code. We are available if you have any questions.
Mr. Moreno. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to point out that we did make a couple changes. I guess the most prominent change is that we eliminated any percentage of the building that could be dedicated, that had to be dedicated to the actual retail sales of it. We're regulating the actual building size itself, and we're leaving the retail sales component to just be a function of the business and how much they'll need to generate as part of that. The only piece that that really is different, that doesn't necessarily fit cleanly into the neighborhood commercial, but this was part of the previous iteration of the ordinance, is that anything that's going to be manufacturing distribution is only going to be allowed in districts that allow manufacturing distribution, which is general commercial and intense commercial. So what that means is in the neighborhood commercial districts, they'll be able to brew, but they can't distribute out of those districts because it's neighborhood commercial, and the code treats all those districts the same for any type of product that's being distributed. It doesn't allow that in a neighborhood commercial district. The neighborhood commercial district is the commercial intensity that you would find that would function very close to residential districts. So having said that, I just wanted to summarize those changes. That 1% change to eliminate the retail sales be at least 50%. That was well, actually it was the opposite, that it couldn't be no more than 50% for the manufacturing, was a pretty significant change in terms of what the industry was seeking to get out of this, and so we wanted to make it clear that we did make that. Also, there was some discussion about how this compares to the City of Tampa and other ordinances at the last meeting. What we're really patterning our ordinance after is the metrics that the state uses, because those metrics are something that we can verify if we get into an enforcement posture. And our code is actually a little bit more restrictive than what the state configures, because the state's configured really to either allow an all-out brewery, which would be something like Anheuser-Busch, or something that would allow the brewing with on-premises sales. So in recognition of the microbreweries and the way other jurisdictions have done that, they've come up with their own metrics, but we wanted to come up with a metric that we could verify by going to the state, because we know that those records are verifiable if we ever get into a posture where there's a question about how much brewing is occurring. So to keep it consistent with what the state has done in terms of how they treat microbreweries, they've limited the gallons, albeit they haven't treated it the same on the distribution side, but they have limited gallons in terms of coming up with a metric with how they define that. So that's what we relied on. Instead of looking necessarily at other jurisdictions, we wanted to look at a metric that we felt was more reliable and verifiable. So I know that there were some questions that came up at the last hearing about that. Wanted to follow up on that. And if there's any questions, and we're here, and I believe there's also some folks from the industry here as well. I don't know if they want to speak or not, but this is a public hearing. It's a first. We can take any input, and then we'll come back in December if there needs to be any adjustments to it. So just want to put that on the record in addition to what Israel said. Thank you.
Thank you for those clarifications. This is a public hearing. Are there members of the audience that would like to address this? Yes, sir. Are you speaking for 12 minutes for the group? I'm just...
My name is Sean Geckner. I'm the owner of Bootleggers Brewing Company at 650 Oakfield in Brandon. We're the only brewery in Brandon. We are a very small, eclectic group of individuals. However, Tampa has ranked consistently between 3rd and 7th nationwide in the craft beer scene, just because of the diversity that's available in this area geographically. Outside of the city of Tampa, and you'll have to forgive me if I stutter, I have this all on my laptop, which is sitting comfortably at home on my desk.
You're doing very well.
Thank you. And this is not at all unlike my homeowners association meeting with 1,000 homes. I'm on the board and nobody shows up. I'll be quite comfortable. It's important to the small-scale nature of the brewing industry, the craft brewing industry. I really need to stress that factor. The size of the space required to produce a craft product is quite small. And because of that, the need for the regulation to open up and allow us to market our product directly to retail, which is being addressed at the state level by the Florida Brewers Guild, is important. Allowing us to distribute in a retail fashion the product that we produce on site is doubly so critical. The markup between the actual production and sale at tap by the glass is substantially reduced if you're putting it in a keg, selling it to a distributor, who then takes it to your neighbor's shop. Bootleggers is also a micro winery, meadery, cidery, and Matt and his folks are here to address the same issue. If everybody were to come out and visit a small craft brewery, you'll notice the nature of the camaraderie. Beer has been around for something like 5,000 years. It's a first example of a preserved food source, and they didn't understand that for thousands of years. Having said that, I guess you could blame me for all of us being here tonight. It was my application getting denied that prompted all of this, and Joe and Israel both, and the entire county staff has been very helpful in getting through this and helping to enact these changes without me, with 3 jobs already, having to attack this from the outside or address it from the outside. We're right in the middle of a rather large expansion plan to the new center at the corner of Falkenberg and Lumsden. Having these changes occur prior to our opening our doors, which is planned, don't you know, for the first of the year, would be very helpful.
Thank you. Are there any other comments here?
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Matt McDonough, and I spoke at the last meeting. While I echo much of what Sean just said, I do want to call specific attention and thank you to not only the commissioners, but to Israel and the rest of the county planning staff. This has been our first experience in doing something like this, presenting and trying to get something to be changed. And it has been a constructive and positive process throughout the entire way. We are looking forward to seeing this as it has evolved, such as it has been wonderful, and we're looking forward to seeing it to its completion. So that's all I have. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Hi, Karen Mahalski, 7903 West Whitewater Court. As an activist who comes to zoning meetings and comprehensive plans, I agree Mr. Masanto did a very good job designating manufacturing to commercial the neighborhoods, so that neighborhoods aren't put into a position of, hey, I've been here for 20 years, and now there's going to be semi-trucks, and they have they have nothing on the comprehensive plan. They don't have any rights, and he's defending future rights, and that is very commendable. Thank you.
Are there any further comments? Okay. So seeing no further comments from the audience, Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
I just want to commend staff for not only listening to our citizens, but also I think hearing some of the comments we had previously made. It's great to see when small businesses have an opportunity to be successful. And as was alluded to earlier or stated earlier, the microbrewery, microwinery culture is one of, of a craft, almost like artists. And they stick together well. I happen to live in a neighborhood full of them. And those that aren't after crafting beer or actually in the business of distributing the craft. And so I've recognized the value and what it's brought to communities, the economy it brings to communities, and the fun it brings in the terms of the events and the celebrations of success of those businesses. So it's great to see that staff has done such a great job of making can be somewhat complex at times, good solutions together. And I'm really happy to see that sometimes government really does work well, and I'm glad to see it happen in this case. So thank you very much for all that
Thank you,
did.
commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Overman.
I'd also like to commend staff and for you all working together to achieve this. That was really good. I don't know if there was a predisposition to helping out this particular industry in a way that maybe, but at any rate, I'm very proud of our microbrewery industry. As you noted, it was 3rd or 7th in the nation. We've been a center for microbreweries, and I thought in particular state law for quite a time did not treat the microbrewery industry as it should be treated. And so I'm really glad to see this growth. I think it's great, a great comment on us, and as you say, a craft and a food craft, and it's all things good. I think it's a great thing. So thank you all for your work that you do, and I'm glad we were able to come to a better resolution for your business. And seeing no further comments, we're adjourned.
Thank you, commissioners, and good night. Here you go, Adam. Thank you for the backup.